Hello and welcome to this let's discuss sort of situation here where we're going to be discussing the news. So let's dive into the news today with first of all the news beginning with Putin saying if the West wants to defeat Russia on the battlefield, let them try. Yeah, that's not honest at all. I mean, yeah. He's also apparently warned that Moscow hasn't even started its military campaign in Ukraine in earnest. I can kind of believe that Russia is a dictatorship, so it's unlikely that, democracy, even if the people don't want to go to war, it's likely that they'll be forced to anyway. So, Russia could technically force a lot of people into the armed forces that way. And that could cause problems there. We're kind of people are just because obviously Russia has a lot of citizens, so that's a thing there. But of course, in other news, really, we also have a situation where there's also things going on, and one of those things is that there's been a man who kidnapped and threatened to kill his former wife has been jailed for 5 years. So yeah, he, he threatened to kill her. It's a pretty traumatic experience. I think those 5 years are deserved. Maybe a little few more might have been better, but who knows. Point though is that this is at least he is facing justice for this. Sometimes these sort of things are they're not always face justice over these things at times. In other news, Japan yesterday introduced a 1-year jail time for cyberbullying. Now, this is an interesting little thing here because it really depends how they, enforce this. This could be a very beneficial thing because a lot of the time, online abuse and all of that, where people are, abuse is shouted at them, and oftentimes people feel safe behind the keyboard and when they're online. And oftentimes cyberbullying is just sort of like, oh, don't do that, and then it's like, well, why not? And it's like, well, it's a cruel thing to do. That person might kill themselves if you do that. And oftentimes the person doesn't really care when they do that, and that is oftentimes a problem with really society as a whole, where this kind of callousness and selfishness of people only care unless something actually affects them. Even if their actions they know will negatively affect somebody else, they will still go ahead and do it. And I think, sorry, this is one of the things where Japan might benefit slightly here. Because oftentimes when you look at, the issues that arise because of cyberbullying online, and oftentimes you've got this thing of like you've got people, they, even with like a kickback. And, I think in many countries, you've got these kind of, a lot of time, for example, you've got celebrities, they cry about being cancelled and all this sort of stuff when they make comments and all these things. You're like, well, first of all, you aren't really cancelled now, are you? You're still fine. But more than that, though, you're also in the position whereby you're kind of saying, oh, yeah, this is a situation in which we'll just get angry at you, and a portion of us will, sort of tell you to stop. But does that actually get someone to stop? No. I think, there has been calls for stronger regulation in Japan. And I think some countries might want to follow this slightly. Maybe, who knows? Of course, there will be issues involved with, what exactly, what's the stage you set for being put in prison, and what's the stage you set for that you know, uh, sort of up to 1 year jail time. What is the scenario there? But some countries might have problems here when it comes to kind of government crackdowns, where the government might decide to let some people off in order to focus on certain individuals, and all these sort of things here. But we do not know yet. Maybe Japan's legal system will fail them here, but maybe they won't. It's not for definite that they will fail. So yeah. And Shiveen Derek has been given a 21-year federal sentence for violating George Floyd's civil rights. He was also set to serve a 22.5-year sentence on state charges of murder and manslaughter, which, I think, not a nice person at all. And, but, I think there is, of course, it does point to a small problem which is in the US, which is oftentimes you need publicity to get these kind of things, people punished for dreadful acts in the United States. When you look at the US, they're oftentimes in the position whereby people do terrible things, but as long as you're wealthy, as long as you're not wealthy, you can't really do anything about it. And that's been the case for many things when it comes to discrimination, and even as far as murder by police officers, where you need to really have publicity for those people to face justice, or even just for you to really see anything there. Anyway, in other news, so 80 cows have died at least in the last decade because of poultry manure. So apparently some cows will die if they, consume poultry and if it's spread around them. So, this is an interesting thing here, where you can see that, if, you've got poultry around cattle, it looks like maybe it's not such a good idea. It might actually cause harm to the cows, because you can expect, if it's caused at least 80 cows to die, in the rare occasion that poultry manure has been ingested by cows, well, you can expect that there have been a great number of cows that haven't died but have had problems. And I think that is a sign that maybe that's not such a good thing. And more than 5.4 million returned to 6 victims of crypto theft in 2021. So this is kind of showing the criminals out there that crypto may not be so safe as you imagine. And I think this is the thing, people's idea that it's kind of free from viewership. It's not really, because it can still be brought back. It's harder to bring back, but it does bring with, of course, negative attitudes, which is, let's say someone gives you a bunch of crypto, or you convert a bunch of stolen money into crypto, and then it devalues, because then you've got a bunch of crypto which is worth hardly anything, and you're still going to be guilty of stealing the amount of money you stole. So basically, it won't look too good when it's like, yes, you stole a load of money, you stole 90 million, let's say, but now you have 1,000. Yeah. There are, of course, interesting attitudes there, where if you steal money and then you convert it into crypto, and then that does devalue, and then that crypto is seized, do you still have to pay back the money that it's fallen by? Like, if you stole 90 million and it fell to $1,000, do you have to pay 89 million? 99 grand or 910 grand. Do you have to do that? Because if you do, well, I think some criminals might be having problems here. And people have commented on the fact that Boris Johnson's damage to Northern Ireland cannot be easily repaired. And I would agree with Brian Rowan there, to be honest, because if you look at Northern Ireland, if you see the protocol and this new policy of just letting army officers go off without, facing conviction, which I think is just terrible. This idea that, oh yeah, you commit a little murder, commit a little rape, it's fine. You did it when you were an army officer. I mean, you aren't told to do it by your superiors. It was not like you can claim, well, it was orders, so maybe my superiors should be the ones who should be punished for it. It's literally you weren't told. That was a personal thing you did. But just because you did it while in service, that makes it okay. And I think this is going to breed many, many issues, because if governments start making it so that the citizens of that country can literally cannot get that army officer to pay the price for their crimes in the country. Keep in mind, Northern Ireland is not just a country that Britain is at war with. You can, it's still terrible when countries do that, where it's like, oh yeah, no, it's fine because we're at war and they are the savages. That's the kind of terrible attitude you have there. And that's, of course, soldiers in Afghanistan, for example. British soldiers are fine. They're allowed to commit all the rapes and murders they like, and nobody can convict them of any crimes there. While you can find out all the information you want. The point is, you can have an eyewitness describe the exact things. You could have visual evidence. You can have an absolute certainty. The person admitting publicly, yep, that they did it. And that even still, things that would make sure they were guilty in an ordinary court of law. No, they did it while they were an army officer, so that's fine. That kind of attitude there, I think that's very problematic, because that's left them around in the position where it's like, but they're citizens of the UK. Citizens of the UK cannot get army officers of the UK army to do this, to face the consequences of their actions. What is that about? It is one thing for a country like England that is used to being very imperialistic and not listening to the democracy of other nations and not punishing their, armies for, crimes against other nations' civilians. But it is quite another to do that to their own people. Can you imagine if an American military veteran was to, shoot an American child, to kill an American child on American soil? Do you think they get the same treatment as they would if they killed an Afghani child, an Iraqi child, or, all these sort of things, a Vietnamese child, all these things? Do you think they're going to get the same, or do you think they'll get slightly more? They'll most likely get slightly more. That's the thing. And that's what's shocking, I think, about this. It's that it's so kind of, protect our troops. So much more, that it's even more than probably the Americans would step. I don't even think the Americans would step to the point where they'd be like, oh, no, troops can't even be punished for crimes they committed here against our own citizens. And I think that is a turn for the worse. And for that is also paired with the protocol situation. And I think, there's going to be violence there. My God. Anyway. And in other news, the US and Russia envoys gather for a G20 meeting. And this is amid calls to end the war in Ukraine. As Putin also says, they haven't even started in earnest. Wow. So the US is set to reopen dialogue with China as well. And the G20 meeting is being held in Indonesia. So that's the sort of thing you have there. I think, all sorts of things going on there. And it does appear as if, a Boris Johnson in the UK might be somewhat unpopular. Looking at the UK's media, you see this kind of thing where they're like, oh, they kind of feel sorry for him all stuff. I kind of feel sorry for him, but in the same way as I feel sorry for, like a brutal dictator being removed by the military so they can insert a military junta. Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, I feel sorry that they're being pushed out and they're going to, have not such a nice time, but also, they were still a terrible person. Just because more terrible people are going to be in power doesn't necessarily mean. So it's like, well, yeah, basically, not a nice man, Boris Johnson, but you can almost feel sorry for him because of his, childishness. Not even childishness. That's just kind of, to be honest, that's kind of being mean to children. It's this kind of attitude of like, oh, kind of classist attitude, being the upper class fella he is, who's gone to all the Eton and all the prestigious places, as I said before, kind of a bit of a weird thing to elect your leader as someone who comes from a elite, like a bit weird that the masses elect an elitist. Yeah. Well, point though being that, if you look at it, you think, yeah, don't exactly feel sorry for him, but some say, oh, look at it. Oh, he tried his best. Did he not? But I think they're nice enough to Boris Johnson, but I think the issue is that they do like the Conservative Party. So, they're kind of like, no, Boris, goodbye. But also, Conservative Party, we're not going to say anything about that, but them, that kind of thing. So there is that kind of thing there. And I think that really is the thing when you're looking at the likes of the UK politics now. Some have described his resignation speech, for example, as whingy, which is kind of fair. Saying like how he has the Democratic all of the people because they elected him as the leader. People knew they were going to be electing him, while a different leader, not necessarily, Democratic elected. I think it is a bit dodgy that that the politics is like, oh yes, basically, basically you elect your prime minister. Unless they get resigned or forced out of the party, in which case you don't. You don't in that case. In that case, we've got a new prime minister you didn't elect. Isn't this great? This is lovely democracy, isn't it? You've got to choose between, like two main parties, Labour, Conservative. You mostly choose Conservative, as we can clearly see. And Labour has really kind of abandoned their kind of, rather like the Republican Party in America, they could have sort of abandoned their for the people attitude. They're more like, we're for the people, definitely not the elitists. Yeah, people, you can vote for us. Just, very similar, in fact, I would say, kind of to Sinn Féin in a way. The way it's kind of like it's promising some stuff, but like you can kind of tell they wouldn't be the best in power in comparison to Conservatives. Labour is not really Labour, to be honest. No offense meant to neo-Labour politicians, but you're not really Labour, though, are you? You're kind of Conservatives, really, and that's the kind of thing, to be honest. It's just a fancy word for trying to get the people to vote for you. And that is the thing you have here, where you're looking at it and you think, okay, we have our situation here, and it's not, Boris Johnson, saying all these things, saying how he, Should he have called a snap election? Is he able to? Really, I don't know. But maybe he should. I don't think it would really damage them as much as it would have. Which is why, in fairness, for his defense, I would say it would have been a smart thing for him to call a snap election before the resignations, because then he would have taken them out. They were like, we resign, and then people would have just gone, oh, yeah, you're going to resign? Oh, yeah, because after the snap election, it's called that kind of thing. Basically, he would have been able to take out the people who are hurting him, is effectively what I'm saying. But that's the kind of thing you have there. And one of the many sort of things here going on is that in Ireland, the Defence Department report an ill-defined policy and extremely strained civil-military interactions. So basically, you have a situation which, when you're talking about the kind of civil service and all these sort of things here, which is, kind of strained, and it's not exactly the best. And returning to the UK politics, Sir Keir Starmer, once again, don't know how you can have a Labour Party where the person who's leading it has knighthood. Doesn't exactly speak to me as a leader of the people, but they will not be fined over Beergate, said the police. So, they had vowed to quit if the police had taken action against them. Would that be a reason why they weren't given fines? Might that have been, a little pressure on the police? We resign. And, because all I'm saying is the police, they may not like, who might replace them if they were to resign, maybe someone who's more actually Labour rather than neo-Labour, where we don't actually have any Labour policies. We just slap the Labour name so that people will kind of blindly vote for us. That kind of thing, which is possible if they did both resign. The party might land up voting for someone who's a little bit more, progressive. Or not even progressive, just not basically conservative. And Boris Johnson's planned wedding party has been moved to Chequers after the controversy. So, they're no longer planning to hold the wedding party at the Prime Ministerial residence in Buckinghamshire, because, that might come as a bit dodgy, a couple of days before I resigned, but I still will be using the residence for my wedding party. It's probably a good idea. Might not have looked the best in the news if he did that, but I don't think he'd really care. Although maybe he might. And that's the thing you have there. And Japan's leader has been murdered. He was shot at a campaign rally. And he has passed away. It is former leader, and it's a unfortunate situation there. Not the best thing. Japan does not have that many gun deaths, unlike the US. It has good control over its guns, so it's a bit of a shock to them, and hopefully they'll be able to, cope with that. And all sorts of things are happening with the UK and the EU. People have regretted the lacking UK-EU partnership on the protocol as people attend a summit in Guernsey. Because developments in Westminster will be sort of kind of on the agenda when they discuss the political situation in each nation.